people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. After her victory this past weekend, Yokasta Valle, reigning unified minimum weight champion, took to her social media and stated, "Nothing will stop me from my goal to be undisputed."
Said the same thing in Spanish for her Costa Rican fans.
To which Senicia Estrada, the only other champion at this weight, unified, responded, "I beat the girl who beat you, and I knocked out 3 opponents that you went the distance with. Levels. Do you want me to tweet that in Spanish too? Okay."
You often hear it said
that triangle theories don't work. Triangle theories in the sport of boxing don't work. That just because you perform well against a common opponent with somebody else, that doesn't mean you'd beat them. However, when you're talking about 2 and 3 opponents and 4 opponents, it stops being a triangle.
becomes a statement. The statement is that one fighter is levels above the other. The only way to disprove that is for them to fight.
You think about what Yokasta Valle said the night of Senicia Estrada's last fight with Leonela Paola Judica. Not a great performance from Senicia, but she still won the fight. You think about what Yokasta said, because Yokasta was in attendance, that she was made an offer by Top Rank to do the fight, but she didn't like the money. You think about that, and you think about what she made for this past weekend's fight. $75,000.
75 G's.
Now, I don't think Top Rank paid through the nose to bring Yokasta Valle over, but I'd wager that what they offered her was in excess of 75,000. I don't know, maybe 100,000, maybe 125.
Somewhere around there.
In that neighborhood. A neighborhood that perhaps to Yokasta is far too close to what she is already making fighting the Maria Santizos of the world, i.e., not enough dough for her to take the plunge.
No.
Not enough dough for her to take the risk. More dough than she's making fight by fight. More, yes, though not enough.
I don't think Yokasta Valle is a bad fighter, and for what it's worth, she's a very likable fighter. I love what she's doing for the sport in her native Costa Rica.
Though I don't have any illusions about what would happen if she actually fought Senicia Estrada. You think about what Yokasta said in reference to Senicia's injury and the subsequent surgery that followed, saying, "I wish Senicia Estrada a full recovery. That said, her status does not affect my current plans."
Well, what are her plans if not to fight Senicia Estrada? What are her plans if it's not to shoot for undisputed?
She made these comments ahead of this past weekend's fight. She said, "I wish Senicia a full recovery and that she comes back at full strength." Valle told BoxingScene.com, "I don't wish injury or pain to any fighter, so I hope she can come back strong and defend her titles. That said, her status does not affect my current plans. Of course, I would love to be undisputed champion, but my goal right now is to move forward with my career." This is what she said before the fight, and after the fight, she said she still wants to be undisputed.
The disconnect is thinking that Yokasta Valle needs Senicia Estrada to become the minimum weight division's undisputed champion. I'm of the opinion that what Yokasta's waiting for is for Senicia to move up.
And she'll just shoot for the vacant titles afterwards, or fight whatever other fighter ends up picking up those titles if Senicia moves up and vacates. That's what I think the play is. You could give Yokasta Valle very good odds to beat almost anybody at minimum weight except Senicia.
Might be what she's banking on.
Whatever Golden Boy has planned, we will be ready, vowed Valle. That is all I can guarantee, that I will be ready for any challenge.
She's a very good fighter, very accomplished, make no mistake. Valle is a decorated and skilled fighter in her own right, but for me and my money, still a cut below Senicia Estrada.
Top Rank isn't going to pay through the nose just to bring Yokasta Valle over for one fight, just one fight. The offer they made her likely was a career-high purse, but perhaps far too close to what she's already making, or close enough that she doesn't want to roll the dice.
Not at that price.
So you make a little more than you normally make fighting Senicia Estrada, but you might lose. Whereas you can still make respectable money, safe money, fighting the Maria Santizos of the world, and you stay a champion. You keep your belts. You wait out Sinicia. See if she don't move up. Maybe she fights the winner of Bermudez versus Clavel. Or maybe she fights Jessica Neri Plata, the other unified champion at light flyweight. Maybe what Yokasta Valle is really waiting for is for Sinicia Estrada to move up in weight so that she can pick up the other two belts after she's gone.
Maybe.
You can fight for undisputed without fighting Sinicia Estrada. Those two things are mutually exclusive depending on the timeline.
You wait long enough.
There's no shortage of girls at minimum weight that Golden Boy Promotions can continue to conjure up for Yokasta Valle in order to keep her busy. Inexpensive options. They're not going to pay to bring Sinicia over.
I mean, that's why she left, because they weren't paying her the way she wanted to get paid. That's why she went to Top Rank.
I mean, think about it. Since all this started, has Golden Boy Promotions even made Sinicia Estrada an offer?
Top Rank made Yokasta one. Did Golden Boy Promotions make a counter offer to Sinicia?
They did. I didn't hear about it. BoxingScene.com must not have reported on it. The bottom line here is, I don't actually think Yokasta Valle wants the Sinicia Estrada fight. And what it might take to make it is more money than Top Rank is willing to pay out.
And yeah, Yokasta might want to see herself crowned undisputed at some point, though not if she has to go through Sinicia to do it.
Men's heavyweight news, a bit of information that's flying a bit below the radar.
What?
Professional boxer and journeyman Kamil Sokolowski receives a 3-year ban for anti-doping rule violations.
Sokolowski, a popular journeyman in Europe who's been in there with practically anyone and everyone the last few years.
He's been banned from all sport for a period of 3 years following anti-doping rule violations for the presence and use of a prohibited substance. On the 12th of November of last year, UK Anti-Doping UCAD collected an in-competition urine sample from Mr. Sokolowski after his fight against Fraser Clark at the AO Arena in Manchester. Analysis of Mr. Sokolowski's sample returned an adverse analytical finding for the exogenous origin of testosterone and its metabolites.
That's basically saying it took almost a year's time for UCAD to adjudicate and rule on the matter. If this all took place in November of last year,
That's what, 10, 11 months? It took him that long to finally rule on the matter. Kamil Sokolowski, I reiterate, a very popular journeyman in Europe.
he ain't got expensive lawyers like Conor Benn to help plead his innocence, or a major promotional outfit behind him like Alicia Baumgartner,
Right.
Oscar Valdez.
This shows is that there are adverse findings at every level of the sport. The journeyman level,
Yeah.
the contender level,
Yeah.
and even at the championship level. Reigning champions testing positive for banned substance. One of the latest was Alicia Baumgartner. It was Hannah Gabriel's before that.
Men's boxing, women's boxing, journeyman level, contender level, champion level.
It all paints a certain picture, doesn't it?
And these adverse findings, these situations are becoming more and more frequent as anti-doping testing becomes more normalized, more uniform in the sport. This is what we're seeing.
Don't expect anybody to lose much sleep or spend much time on the case of Kamil Sokolowski. It's just one of many situations, one of many anti-doping fiascos in the sport right now. And boxing insider Jeff Powell speculates that 1 or 2 prominent UK gyms are pushing fighters to take pads.
Whenever a fighter tests positive for a banned substance, the response is a uniform response. They don't know how it happened, they don't know how it got there, but
Starts to sound like a lot of bullshit given the frequency of adverse findings we're seeing in the sport. One every week. Boxing has been rife with doping scandals in the last 12 months, with a dozen failed tests uncovered across the world, including numerous high-profile athletes in major bouts. It has been one of the hottest topics in boxing, especially in the last 6 weeks, with the shocking statistics behind UCAD testing, the lack of VADA in a pay-per-view event, Smith vs. Eubank 2, and Matchroom sending out a famous template every week with a different boxer's name on it.
in previous years, these kinds of adverse findings were thought of as more or less isolated incidents, but more and more, with the frequency of adverse findings, it becomes clear.
There are more people doping in the sport of boxing than perhaps the fans realize.
So where does it start?
Daily Mail sports writer Jeff Powell, who has written about boxing for more than 50 years, believes that certain UK gyms could be part of the problem. There are suggestions that there are 1 or 2 prominent gyms in this country which are pushing their fighters to take substances. Jeff Powell told boxing king media. It is a shocking claim from the veteran journalist, and although he would not name any gyms, accusations like this one have been made before.
Well, of course he's not going to name any names.
That's not the kind of accusation you can make about a gym and an entire stable of fighters where they fight out of without repercussions. If you're going to make an accusation like that, you need proof.
I don't know how UK laws work, but I'm pretty sure that's slander and libel here in the US of A. If you make an accusation like that, but you can't substantiate it.
A few months ago, it was Deontay Wilder, the former champion, that made a bold steroid claim saying all the top guys are on it.
Though naturally, he exempted himself. He's clean, in his own words.
He said, for me, all the guys in the top 10 and up, excluding me, are doing something. That's how I feel. I don't need to because of the simple fact that I have what everybody wants. I believe.
And I have the power.
My thoughts. If you've been paying attention, doping in the sport of boxing is widespread. That's the conclusion you will come to, but that's not the only conclusion. The other conclusion, or at least part of it, is that everybody knows. People in the industry, on the other side of the curtain, they know exactly what's going on.
Mia St. John once said that she knew about fighters that were doping, and were never caught.
So you tell yourself, well, if everybody's on something, doesn't that then even the playing field? Your peds versus my peds, your banned substances versus mine? And if that is the landscape, why don't they just legalize it?
Liability.
The liability of sending fighters out there, knowing that they're on something, and what adverse effects that might have on their health or the health of their opponents, what takes place in a 8-rounder, a 10-rounder, a 12-rounder, liability.
If people know, and they admit that they know, liability becomes an issue, a big issue.
What can be done to clean up the sport, try to clean it up if anybody actually wants to do that? Well, anti-doping tests. They don't come cheap. It would be that much more expensive for promoters around the world, if anti-doping testing became more uniform.
Shows would get that much more expensive to put on if you had to test every single fighter on every single show, every show, in a calendar year.
Fiscally, for the promoters and the event coordinators, it would be a nightmare.
Thus, between a sport that is more bent, more dirty than people realize,
and the cost of cleaning it up being far in excess of what the promoters can spend or are willing to spend, you're left at a stalemate.
an impasse.
The old saying goes, nothing's going to kill boxing, but nothing's going to save it. That almost immediately comes to mind when I think of this doping issue, quote-unquote doping issue.
Every so often, somebody's gonna piss hot.
Somebody's going to get suspended. Somebody's going to serve a year ban or a 2-3-year ban, a 4-year ban. Every so often, that's going to happen.
But I don't see this going away.
I just don't. What it would cost to truly clean up the sport of boxing. What it would take.
And let's not pretend the sport of boxing is the only sport rife with doping scandals.
Whenever this inconvenient truth about the sport we all know and love rears its ugly head, this inconvenient truth.
It's been this way for the longest time. It's more widespread than people realize, and no, it's not going away.
Finally, in men's lightweight and super lightweight news, Devin Haney had this to say on Shakur Stevenson. He said he should have took the money that I offered him. He's offered somebody else, Frank Martin, the same thing, right? Didn't he offer somebody the same thing I offered him? Yes or no?
Shakur Stevenson very recently sat down with both Gilly the Kid and Wailo on $1 million worth of game, and he addressed Devin Haney's quote-unquote offer.
Why we gonna straighten it out now? That they gave you 25%, and that 25% would have came out to be more money than you ever made. That was the reports in the media.
And they put a specific number out there too.
Like 8 million.
Exactly. They say 8 million.
I see everything.
So if it was 8 million, right? How much would he have made?
Let me ask you a question.
32 million.
Right. All right.
30. It would have been what? 32, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. 32 million. Now they got 8.
Or
right?
24 million.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, because if he giving you 25,
cool,
he taking
you're
it.
right. Smart man. But look, 24. You think he was making $24 million versus me? Top Rank is doing the fight. How in the world would I be? If I was offered 8 million, I'm jumping. Jump quick. Come on, 8 million. Let's do it.
Remember that Bob Arum said there was no substance to Devin Haney's offer. That's what he said. And Devin Haney,
He said he offered Shakur Stevenson 25%.
the number that's out there that surmises that 25% is approximately $8 million. So what's 8 times 4?
32.
Now the other 75%, of the supposed $32 million pot. That would have came out to roughly $24 million to Devin Haney. Now, you tell me, who was paying Devin Haney $24 million? Because it wasn't Bob.
And who was paying Shakur Stevenson $8?
Here today, in a world of boxing, who's going to put up approximately $32 million to stage this fight, not having either of these fighters under contract? Because Bob made it clear there was no substance to Devin Haney's offer.
So the money wasn't coming from him.
You know you're a better fighter than him. I know money is money. You got money. You got a bag. You're not broke. Why not say, you know what? I'm going to take that to beat your ass and take your hope.
I didn't say no. I went to another direction because that's the twist narrative because they only focus on one thing. I went another direction. I said, okay, I'm going to enforce the WBC to do their job. So I enforced my mandatory. Once I enforced my mandatory, this man gave up the belt and moved up to 140. Who is ducking who?
So many are trying to liken Shakur Stevenson's situation with Devin to Frank Martin's situation with Shakur when it's not the same thing. Shakur Stevenson didn't walk away from Devin Haney. He just didn't accept his offer. He still wanted to fight.
He did.
He still used his mandatory status to enforce.
Why do you think he still has a title shot?
Why do you think Devin Haney was labeled a quote-unquote champion in recess? And why do you think the WBC title is now vacant?
Why?
It's not the same thing we just saw with Frank Martin. With Frank Martin, Frank outright withdrew from the fight, withdrew from the Shakur Stevenson fight, and now he has no title shot. Whereas Shakur, in spite of things not working out with Devin, he still has a title shot. He still got it.
Why?
Because he didn't withdraw like Frank Martin did. Had he withdrew outright, he'd have no title shot.
And it would have went to somebody else, the next highest ranked contender. It wouldn't have went to Shakur, not if he withdrew, not if he walked away, but he didn't walk away.
He didn't walk away from a fight with Devin.
Whereas Frank Martin, he did walk away from a fight with Shakur, and that's why he has no shot.
It's not the same thing. As obtuse as people are being about this, those two situations are not alike. And if you want my honest opinion, if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, the truth is that Devin's offer was fake. It was a front, it was a bluff. Because you guys suck at math, use your fucking head, you bozos. If Shakur Stevenson's entitled to 25%, and 25% of the pot is $8 million, that makes it a $32 million pot. Who the hell was gonna put up $32 million for these two guys to fight?
Not Bob. He said there was no substance to the offer.
My best guess is that Devin Haney didn't want to be lambasted for not fighting Shakur Stevenson. He didn't want to be another fighter that avoided a fight with him, though at the same time, he can't keep making lightweight healthy. He's outgrown the division, so he pretends to give the guy an offer,
To save face.
which I think is unnecessary because he could have sewed all of this up by saying, I can't make lightweight anymore, I'm sorry, meet me at 140 down the line.
I would have accepted that.
This whole bit about $8 million, 25%, $32 million pot, I'm sorry to tell you that a fight between these two guys right now, it ain't worth that.
They're not there yet.
The ways anybody would gamble that amount of money just to stage a fight between them.
Are you nuts?
But he's gonna gamble that much money on these two guys fighting? Are you kidding?
Not right now.
Maybe down the line, but right now that would be too big a risk.
That's a dead giveaway that Devin's offer wasn't real.